Rachel Miller hadn't planned to spend her Saturday afternoon standing in front of a mirror wearing something she bought months ago and never had the courage to try on. The lace set had been tucked deep in her closet, hidden beneath old sweaters and folded jeans. One of those someday purchases she told herself she'd wear when she felt more confident, more like herself again. But someday never seemed to come, until that day. The house was quiet, sunlight pouring through the blinds and cutting soft lines across the floor. Her sister Emily was out of town for the weekend, and for the first time in weeks, Rachel felt like she could breathe. No office calls, no deadlines, no one needing anything from her. Just a quiet afternoon, and maybe, for once, a little self-care. She stood there in front of the mirror, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, studying her reflection. It had been a long time since she'd really looked at herself. Not the tired professional version she saw in passing each morning before work, but the woman beneath all that routine. She didn't look perfect, but she didn't need to. She just wanted to feel human again. A soft smile tugged at her lips. "You still got it," she whispered, almost laughing at her own words. She reached for her robe, ready to put it on and go make herself some coffee, when the sound of a door opening downstairs made her freeze. Her heart skipped. No one was supposed to be home. Emily had left early that morning for her friend's engagement party out of town. Then came the voice. "Rachel, you home?" Her heart raced. That wasn't Emily's voice. It was deeper, familiar. Daniel's. Daniel Carter had been Emily's best friend since college. He'd been around for years, helping with family dinners, backyard projects, late-night movie nights. Rachel had always thought of him as part of the family, though lately she'd noticed something about him had changed. He wasn't the awkward, easygoing guy who used to joke around all the time. He'd grown quieter, more thoughtful, with a calm confidence that caught people's attention without even trying. Rachel's eyes widened as she scrambled to grab her robe. "Oh, no," she muttered under her breath, fumbling with the fabric. "He's not supposed to be here." She tied the robe just as Daniel's footsteps echoed closer. "Emily told me to drop off her charger," he called out. "Daniel, wait." Rachel tried to warn him, but it was too late. He appeared in the doorway, smiling, mid-sentence, and then froze. For one long second, neither of them moved. His expression shifted instantly from casual to stunned, his eyes widening before he looked away, his face turning red. "Oh my God, I'm sorry," he blurted, backing up a step. I didn't know you were..." Rachel pulled the robe tighter, her cheeks burning. "It's okay," she said quickly, forcing a nervous laugh. "You just caught me off guard." He looked mortified, still facing away. "I swear I knocked. I thought you were upstairs." "It's fine, really." She took a deep breath, trying to calm her pounding heart. The embarrassment was real, but so was the odd, unexpected warmth under her skin. When Daniel finally turned back, he was careful not to look directly at her. His voice came out softer. "You look... different." He paused, realizing how that sounded. "I mean, not different. Just... you seem happier. You should smile like that more often." Rachel blinked, caught off guard. It wasn't what she expected him to say. "Thanks," she murmured, unsure how to respond. The air between them felt strange, a mix of awkwardness and something else, something she couldn't quite name. She walked to the kitchen to give them both space, motioning for him to follow. "You can leave the charger on the counter," she said. He nodded and placed it down carefully, as if even the small sound might make things more uncomfortable. "Emily said she needed it for her trip," he explained. "Yeah," Rachel said quietly, trying to sound casual. "She mentioned you'd help her out." For a few seconds, silence filled the room. Rachel busied herself by straightening a few things that didn't need straightening. Daniel leaned against the counter, watching her with a faint, thoughtful expression. Finally, he said, "You've been working too much, haven't you?" Rachel looked up, surprised. "You can tell?" He smiled. "You always look like you've got the whole world on your shoulders. But today, I don't know, you seem lighter, like you finally took a break." His words sank in deeper than she expected. No one really noticed those things about her. Not even Emily. She gave a small laugh, trying to brush it off. "Maybe I just needed a quiet day." Daniel nodded slowly. "You deserve that." The way he said it, gentle, certain, made Rachel's chest tighten. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. Not as Emily's older sister, not as the dependable friend or the overworked woman, but simply as herself. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear again, suddenly aware of the quiet between them. "I should probably let you go," she said softly. "Right." "Yeah," he said quickly, standing straighter. But he didn't move right away. Instead, he lingered a moment longer, looking at her with something that felt like unspoken curiosity, respect, even admiration. When he finally reached the door, he turned back. "Rachel," he said gently, "don't be embarrassed, okay? You looked confident. That's not something to hide." She didn't know what to say. By the time she found her words, he was already outside, the door clicking shut behind him. Rachel stood there for a long moment, the stillness of the house returning around her. She let out a shaky laugh, half nervous, half relieved. "Confident," she repeated under her breath. It had been so long since anyone had said something like that to her, and meant it. That night, as she sat by her bedroom window with a cup of tea, Rachel's mind kept replaying the day. The look on Daniel's face, his kindness, the quiet sincerity in his tone. She didn't know what it meant, and she didn't want to overthink it. But a small, unexpected warmth lingered in her chest. For years, she had moved through life on autopilot, working, helping, giving, and forgetting what it felt like to be noticed in a way that wasn't about responsibility. But today, in the most unexpected moment, she'd been reminded that she was still someone worth seeing. She smiled to herself, shaking her head. "What a day," she whispered. Outside, the streetlights flickered on one by one, and the house settled into silence again. Rachel didn't realize it yet, but this awkward, accidental moment was only the beginning of something quietly transformative. Not a scandal or a secret, but a story about rediscovery, timing, and the strange ways people can remind us who we really are. And as she drifted to sleep, her phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. A new message. From Daniel. "Sorry again about earlier, but for what it's worth. You looked truly happy today." Rachel's heart fluttered. She didn't reply, but the small smile that spread across her face said everything she couldn't put into words. Rachel woke up the next morning still thinking about Daniel's message. It had been simple, polite, even innocent, yet something about it stayed with her. "You look truly happy today." She read it again before getting out of bed, and, for the first time in months, she smiled before her morning coffee. She tried to shake it off as she went about her day. She told herself it was nothing. Daniel was just kind, that was all. But every time her phone buzzed, her heart jumped, half hoping it was him again. It was a strange feeling, being noticed like that. Not in a romantic way, or at least that's what she tried to tell herself, but in a way that made her feel alive again. By noon, she decided she needed some air. The weather was perfect, crisp sunlight, a soft breeze, and the quiet calm of a Sunday in their small Connecticut neighborhood. She threw on a sweater, grabbed her keys, and stepped outside. She wasn't planning to see anyone, just to walk and clear her thoughts. but fate, it seemed, had other plans. As she rounded the corner of the street, she saw Daniel standing in front of his truck, talking to an elderly neighbor. He looked relaxed, casual in a gray t-shirt and jeans, the kind of effortless look that somehow made him seem more grown-up than she remembered. He noticed her almost instantly, and his face lit up with a surprised but warm smile. "Rachel. Hey." She hesitated for a second, then walked over, returning the smile. "Hey, Daniel. Running into you twice in one weekend? I'm starting to think you're following me." He laughed, a little nervously. "Pure coincidence, I promise." Then, after a short pause, he added, "You got my message?" "I did," she said, her voice soft. "Thank you. That was nice of you." "It was true," he replied simply. "You looked happy. It's good to see that side of you." There was an honesty in his tone that caught her off guard again. She tucked her hands into her pockets and looked at him curiously. "You always notice things about people, don't you?" He shrugged. "Only when I care." That made her heart skip a beat, not because of what he said, but because of how genuine it sounded. Daniel wasn't someone who said things just to fill silence. When he spoke, he meant it. They ended up walking together toward the park, talking about everything and nothing. Work, family, Emily's never-ending stories about her job, and how Daniel had been thinking of moving back into the city. Their conversation flowed easily, without effort or awkwardness. It was comforting. The way talking to him felt like a blend of old familiarity and something quietly new. As they reached the park bench near the lake, Rachel sat down, glancing at the water. "I don't even remember the last time I came here," she said softly. "Emily and I used to spend summers here when we were kids." Daniel smiled. "Yeah, I remember. You'd always sit under that big oak tree and read, while Emily and I tried to catch frogs." Rachel laughed, the memory flooding back. "You two were always such troublemakers." He grinned. "And you were always the one making sure we didn't actually hurt ourselves." "Old habits die hard," she said, still smiling. But her voice carried a trace of something deeper, a quiet sadness she didn't expect. Daniel noticed. "You miss the old days?" he asked. Rachel took a moment before answering. "Sometimes. Back then, everything felt simpler. Now it's just responsibilities, expectations, work. It's like I blinked and 10 years disappeared." He looked at her thoughtfully. "You're still young, Rachel. You've just forgotten how to live for yourself." She glanced at him, his words sinking in like a quiet truth. No one had ever said that to her before. Not like that. It wasn't judgmental. It was caring. Real. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly, then put it back in his pocket. "Sorry," he said. "That was Emily. She told me to make sure you're not overworking again." Rachel chuckled. "She still thinks she's my life coach." "She just worries about you," Daniel said. "We both do." That we made her heart flutter again, and she looked down at her hands to hide her smile. She didn't know what was happening, but it was something she hadn't felt in a long time. The warmth of being seen, not as someone's older sister or dependable friend, but as a woman with her own light. The wind picked up, brushing a few strands of hair across her face. Without thinking, Daniel reached out and tucked them gently behind her ear. The gesture was natural, instinctive, but the closeness of it made Rachel's breath hitch. For a moment, they just looked at each other. His hand still halfway lifted, her heart beating faster than it should have. Then he cleared his throat and pulled back, breaking the moment. "Sorry, it's fine," she said quickly, a soft laugh escaping her. "You just surprised me, that's all." He smiled, his eyes still kind. "Guess I've been doing that a lot lately." They both laughed, and the tension eased. But something had undeniably changed between them. a quiet shift neither dared to name. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Daniel walked her home. When they reached her porch, he paused. "Rachel," he said slowly, "I hope yesterday didn't make things weird. I'd hate for you to feel uncomfortable." She shook her head, smiling genuinely. "You didn't. If anything, I think I should thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me that I'm allowed to be myself again." He looked at her, surprised but pleased. "Anytime," he said softly. "You deserve to feel that." They stood there for a brief, quiet moment, neither wanting to say goodbye. The golden light of evening washed over them, turning everything calm and still. Finally, Daniel nodded. "I'll see you soon?" "Yeah," she said, smiling faintly. "Soon." When he left, Rachel went inside and leaned against the door, her heart still light. The day had been simple, no big drama, no chaos, yet something about it felt deeply important. She felt awake again, like she was remembering a part of herself that had been asleep for years. Later that night, she got another message from Daniel. It read, "You seemed peaceful today. I'm glad. Maybe that's what you needed. Someone to remind you of it." Rachel smiled, her chest tightening in a warm, confusing way. She typed back, "Maybe you're right." Before she could overthink it, she hit send. Then she turned off her lamp and lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling, realizing she was smiling again. Not because someone had complimented her, but because for the first time in a long time, she felt seen and understood. Outside, the quiet hum of the night filled the air, and Rachel knew something inside her had shifted. She didn't know where it would lead, but she wasn't afraid of it anymore. A few days passed after Rachel's walk with Daniel, but she couldn't get that afternoon out of her head. Every time she sat at her desk or made dinner, his words echoed softly. "You've just forgotten how to live for yourself." It was strange how someone younger than her could sound so sure, so wise. She tried to push the thought aside, but Daniel's presence lingered in her mind like a quiet tune she couldn't stop humming. It was Friday evening when she heard a knock on her door. She wasn't expecting anyone. Emily was working late, and she hadn't made plans. When she opened the door, there he was again, standing on the porch with that easy smile. "Daniel?" she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" He held up a small box of pastries from her favorite bakery. "Peace offering," he said. "I was nearby and thought you might need a break." Rachel laughed, shaking her head. "You really shouldn't keep showing up like this. People will start talking." He grinned. "Let them. I'm just a friendly neighbor dropping off dessert." She rolled her eyes but stepped aside. "Fine, come in." The smell of cinnamon and sugar filled the room as he placed the box on the kitchen counter. Rachel poured 2 cups of tea, and soon they were sitting by the window, the evening light spilling across the table. It felt natural, comfortable, like 2 old friends catching up after years apart. "So," she asked between sips, "how's work? Still driving those long routes?" "Yeah," he said, leaning back. "Though I've been thinking about switching things up. Maybe take a course, do something new." She raised an eyebrow. "Really? What changed?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe it's you." Rachel blinked, startled. "Me?" He nodded, his tone calm but honest. "You talk about life like it still has meaning. Most people I meet just complain. But when you talk, even when you're tired, there's still hope in your voice. It makes me want to do more." For a moment, Rachel didn't know what to say. His words were simple, but they touched something deep inside her. She'd spent years trying to stay strong, pretending to have it all together, never realizing someone actually noticed the small light she tried to keep alive. "Daniel," she said softly. "That's kind of you to say." "It's true," he replied. "You make things feel lighter." Their eyes met, and the silence between them felt full, not awkward, but alive. The kind of silence that says more than words can. Rachel looked away first, pretending to focus on her tea, but her heart was racing. After a few minutes, Daniel glanced around the room. "You've kept everything so neat. It feels peaceful here." She smiled. "I like calm places. After a long day, silence feels like home." "Maybe that's why I like being here," he said quietly. Rachel froze. She could feel the warmth in his voice, the sincerity in his tone. It wasn't flirting. It was something deeper, something real. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, sighed, and looked a little troubled. "Everything okay?" she asked. He nodded, but she could tell something was bothering him. "Yeah, it's just my landlord. He's selling the house I'm renting. I have a month to move out." "Oh no," she said, concerned. "That's short notice." He shrugged. "It's fine. I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll find a small place nearby." Rachel hesitated, thinking. "Emily's old storage room is still free. If you need somewhere temporary, you could stay there for a bit. Just until you find something else." Daniel looked surprised. "You'd really let me?" "Of course," she said quickly. "You've helped me so much lately. It's the least I can do." He gave her a grateful smile, one that lit up his whole face. "You're amazing, Rachel. I promise I won't be any trouble." That night, Daniel moved a few of his things in. It felt strange at first, having someone else in the house after so long. But Daniel was considerate. He didn't make noise, didn't leave a mess, and always offered to help around. Slowly, the house started to feel more alive. In the mornings, he'd make coffee before she woke up. Sometimes he'd leave small notes on the counter, reminders to smile, or a quick, "good luck today." It was the kind of kindness Rachel didn't know she needed. Days turned into a week, and their rhythm became natural. They'd talk late into the night, about dreams, regrets, and the things they never told anyone else. Rachel began to open up, about her failed relationship, her lost passion for art, the years she spent living for everyone but herself. Daniel listened, never interrupting, never judging. One evening, as rain poured outside, they sat by the window wrapped in quiet. Daniel turned to her and said, "You know, I used to think happiness was about having everything, but now I think it's about finding peace, with the right person near you." Rachel looked at him, her heart tightening. She saw the honesty in his eyes, and for the first time she didn't look away. "Sometimes," she said softly, "peace finds you when you stop looking." The sound of rain filled the silence. Neither of them said more, but everything was understood. Over the next few days, small changes became impossible to ignore. Rachel laughed more, smiled more, even started painting again, something she hadn't done in years. Daniel noticed and always encouraged her. "You have real talent," he'd say, watching her brush move across the canvas. One night, after finishing a painting, Rachel found Daniel in the kitchen fixing a loose cabinet door. His sleeves were rolled up, his focus sharp. She leaned against the doorframe and said, "You really can't sit still, can you?" He laughed. "I just like making things better." "Even people?" she asked teasingly. He looked up at her with a small smile. "Only when they deserve it." Something in that moment felt different, quieter, deeper. Their connection wasn't built on grand gestures or perfect timing. It was built on care, on noticing the small things that mattered. Before bed that night, Rachel stood by. Her window looking out at the dark street, she realized she wasn't lonely anymore. Daniel's presence had changed the atmosphere of her home and of her heart. But as much as it felt right, she couldn't ignore the small voice of doubt inside her. What would Emily think if she knew? What if people misunderstood? Rachel pushed the thoughts away, reminding herself that kindness wasn't wrong, and friendship didn't need to be explained. Yet deep down, she knew something more was growing between them, something she could no longer name as just friendship. As she turned off the lights and lay in bed, she could hear Daniel moving quietly in the next room. The sound was comforting. She smiled in the dark, feeling a calm she hadn't known in years. Maybe, she thought, life was finally giving her a second chance at happiness. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, steady kind that felt real. And somewhere in that peaceful silence, both of them knew this was only the beginning. The following week brought a strange stillness to Rachel's home. The air felt lighter, warmer, but she also knew something was changing, something she couldn't quite put into words. Daniel's presence had quietly filled her life in ways she hadn't expected. His laughter lingered in the hallways, his music drifted from the storage room, and his care showed in the smallest gestures, fixing the light, watering her plants, remembering how she liked her tea. Rachel hadn't felt this kind of comfort in years. Yet every night, as she lay in bed, she caught herself thinking about him more than she should. His smile, the sound of his voice, the way he noticed details about her that no one else ever did. It wasn't planned, and it wasn't supposed to happen. He was her niece's friend, kind, respectful, much younger, but her heart didn't seem to care about definitions. One Friday evening, as they were cleaning up after dinner, Rachel's phone buzzed. She picked it up and froze. It was a message from Emily. "Aunt Rachel, surprise, I'm coming home this weekend. Can't wait to see you." Rachel's heart skipped. "Oh no," she murmured. Daniel looked up. "Everything okay?" She sighed. "Emily's coming home tomorrow. I completely forgot she mentioned taking time off work." Daniel gave a small nod. "That's great news, right?" "Yes, of course," Rachel said quickly, though her mind was spinning. Emily had no idea Daniel was staying there. What would she think? Would she misunderstand? That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the sound of rain tapping against the window. She knew there was nothing inappropriate about their friendship. It was pure, honest, built on care and kindness. But the world often misunderstood quiet bonds like theirs. She didn't want anyone, especially Emily, to misread it. The next morning, Daniel was already up, packing a few of his things. "You're leaving?" she asked, her voice softer than she intended. He smiled gently. "Just for a bit. I don't want to make things awkward when Emily arrives. I can stay at a motel until she leaves." Rachel frowned. "You don't have to do that. You've done nothing wrong." "I know," he said, "but it's better this way." She wanted to argue but stopped herself. He was right. She nodded quietly, trying to hide her disappointment. When Emily arrived later that day, the house filled with laughter and stories again. Rachel hugged her tightly, pretending everything was normal. They spent the afternoon catching up, cooking, and watching old movies. Still, every few hours, Rachel caught herself glancing at the empty storage room door. That night, after Emily had gone to bed, Rachel stepped outside to get some air. The porch was quiet, bathed in moonlight. Her phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. "I hope the visit's going well. Don't worry about me. I'll stop by tomorrow to grab the rest of my stuff." Rachel typed a reply, deleted it, and finally sent, "Okay, take care, Daniel." But she didn't sleep well. Something about the way things ended didn't feel right. Unfinished, unresolved. The next morning, Daniel came by as promised. Emily was out grocery shopping, and Rachel met him at the door. "Hey," he said, giving her a small smile. "Just came to grab a few things." "Of course," she replied, trying to sound casual. "Come in." The air between them was different, quieter, heavier. Daniel packed his small bag while Rachel stood by the doorway, feeling a strange ache build inside her. When he was done, he turned to her. "I wanted to say thank you. For everything. You've been more than kind." Rachel managed a smile. "You don't need to thank me, Daniel. You helped me too, more than you know." He hesitated, looking into her eyes. I wasn't just fixing your cabinet or making coffee. I stayed because I liked being here. Because I liked you. Rachel's breath caught. She wasn't expecting him to say it out loud. He continued softly. I know it's complicated, and maybe nothing can come of it, but I just needed you to know. For a long moment she said nothing. She just looked at him, really looked, and saw the honesty in his eyes, the calm strength behind his words. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man who cared deeply, and he wasn't afraid to show it. Daniel, she finally whispered, you've brought light back into my life. But what we have, it's fragile. People won't understand. He nodded slowly. I don't care what people think. I care about you. The words hit her heart like a soft storm. Unexpected, yet exactly what she needed to hear. She took a deep breath. Then maybe it's time I stop caring too. They both smiled, a quiet understanding passing between them. No promises, no grand gestures, just truth. Before either could say more, Emily's car pulled into the driveway. Rachel's eyes widened. You should go, she said quickly. Daniel gave a small nod but didn't look away. I'll see you soon. As he left through the back door, Emily entered through the front. Hey, Aunt Rachel. Was someone here? Rachel froze for a second, then smiled. Just a delivery. Nothing important. Emily shrugged and carried the groceries inside, talking about her plans and work. But Rachel barely heard her. Her mind was still with Daniel, his words, his smile, the way he made her feel alive again. That night, after Emily went to bed, Rachel sat alone in her room. On the table was a small envelope. Inside, she found a note. Daniel must have left it before leaving. It read, You taught me that love isn't about age or labels. It's about finding peace where your heart feels at home. I hope you keep painting, laughing, and living. I'll always be grateful for you. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness but from something deeper, gratitude, affection, maybe even love. Weeks passed. Emily returned to the city, and life went back to its quiet rhythm. Rachel focused on her art again, her work, her friends. But every time she picked up a paintbrush, she found herself painting light, sunlight through windows, gentle hands fixing broken things, small smiles that said more than words ever could. One sunny afternoon, as she was watering the garden, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Need help with that? She turned around, and there he was. Daniel, standing by the gate, smiling the same warm smile that once changed everything. Rachel laughed softly, feeling her heart leap. You're back? Couldn't stay away too long, he said. Besides, I owe you a new coffee machine. I broke the old one, remember? She shook her head, smiling through happy tears. You didn't need an excuse to come back. I know, he said gently. But it felt right. They stood there for a moment, two people who had found something unexpected but real. Not a perfect love, not a fairy tale, but a connection built on kindness, honesty, and quiet understanding. As the afternoon light wrapped around them, Rachel realized something simple but beautiful. Love didn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it came softly, like a knock on the door when you least expected it, and this time, she was ready to open it.